Hello everyone, in this part we're going to start building the authentication UI. So first I'm going to change the opacity for this welcome screen. So let's go to this component and add a property, background opacity. Let's make it 0.5. Now it looks better. So let's go to the register component, and here first I'm going to copy and paste the style sheet for the register screen. And let me just import all these variables, so I'll show you these styles whenever we will use them. Okay, cool. So now I'm gonna start designing the registration component. First we need to import the keyboard avoiding view so that the keyboard does not conflict with the inputs on the screen. And here we need to add some properties as the style as flex1. Then we need to add a property behavior. It will be different for iOS and Android. So if the device is iOS, then it will be padding, and if it's Android, then it's going to be height, like this. So let's save this. Okay, so let's go to the registration page. Okay, nothing has changed for now. So now we're gonna start designing. First let's remove this, and here let's add a container view. Let's give it a styles of container, like this. So we're also gonna have the pattern for this screen, so let's add the property show pattern as true. Okay, there we can see the pattern. Now for the container we have the following styles, so you can just copy these. Then inside this I'm gonna add a view. This will be the header, so let's give it a style of header. And for the header we have the following styles. This is justified space between, so there's gonna be content on the left and the right side. Now let's add a back button. So we need to make this component so that we can reuse it every time. So let's create a new component, back button. Let's create a functional component. Okay, now let's just import it here. Okay, cool. So now let's go into the back button, and here we're gonna receive some properties as the style, then the icon size. By default it's going to be 26, and then the color, and it's going to be white by default. And then it will have the prop type as back button props. And if I go to this file, then you can see I have these properties and their types, so you can just copy these. So we're gonna need to define the router so that we can go back if we press on this back button. And here let's make it touchable opacity, and then we're gonna add an on press method. So here let's use the router to use the back function, like this. And then we're gonna add two styles for the button default style and the style that we're passing from the parent component. Okay, so let me add the button styles here. Let's just leave it for now because I don't think we will need that. Now let's remove this, and here I'm gonna add an icon, caret left icon. I think we haven't installed the icon library yet, so we're going to use Phosphor React Native for the icons. This is an awesome library for free icons, so I highly recommend using this. This is their website. You can explore all the icons here. So the icon that we're gonna use is caret left, so we can search for the icons. There you can see caret left. We're going to use this one. So first we need to install this, so let me just stop the server and install this library. Okay, the library is installed. Now let me just run our application. We need to reload. Okay, so we don't see any error. That's a good sign. Now let's import the caret left and use it. I hope it auto imports, and it's not, so we're gonna have to import it manually. Phosphor React Native, and we're gonna import caret left, this one. Then let's use it here. We are also gonna define some properties as the size of the icon, the color, and the weight. So size will be vertical scale of the icon scale that we are passing. Then the color will be the color from the parent component. And then we have different weights for this icon, so it will suggest all the weights. You can also see these weights on their website. So this is the fill, and then we have dual tone and regular sized icon. So this is the regular, but we're gonna use the weight as bold for this icon. Let's close it and save this. It should appear here. Let me just reload. Okay, there we can see the back icon. Now this component is complete. Now let's go back, and here let's pass the property as icon size. We're gonna use the icon size of 28. There we can see. Okay, so after this I'm gonna add a typo, and here I'm gonna add the size of 17. Then the color will be white. We're gonna have a text here as needs some help. Let's save this. So there we can see the design. So this is the header design. Now after the header, we're gonna add another view for the content area. So let's give it a style as content. Okay, for the content we have these following properties of the style, so you can just copy these. It's rounded on the top, so it will look just like this. So let's save this, and there you can see the border area, the top area is rounded. Okay, so inside this content view I'm gonna add a scroll view. Then I'm gonna add the content container styles and give this a style of form. It just have a gap of 5. Also, let's hide the vertical scroll indicator like this, and then inside this I'm gonna add another view and give this a style, and we're gonna have a gap of spacing vertical of 10. So I've already talked about this. We have predefined values using vertical scale, so we don't have to use vertical scale every time. We can just use these predefined values. Then the margin bottom will be spacing y of 15 like this. Then inside this view I'm gonna add a typo. Size will be 28 and the font weight it's going to be 600. Then this will say getting started. Let's save this. So there we can see the text. Now after this I'm gonna add another line that will say create an account to continue. We're going to remove these properties and just have color as the neutral 600 like this. So there we can see the line. Now after this I'm gonna add an input, so we're going to have a custom input component. So let's create a new file in the components as input.tsx. Then let's create a functional component, and I'm just gonna import it here for now. Let's save this. So there we can see the input. Now this input is going to receive some props, and it's gonna be of type input props. And in the input props we have icon, container style, input style, and the reference. And it also extends the input text input props, so you can just copy these types. Then here first I'm gonna add a view. Then let's give it a style as the styles.container, the default styles for the container. Then we're gonna have the container styles that will be passing from the parent component like this. And then we're gonna have one more style based on if it's focused. So if the input is focused, then we're gonna change the border for this input container, and we're going to define this property here is focused and set is focused. By default it's going to be false, but when we focus on the input we will change this to true. Okay, so then inside this we're gonna display the icon. Yes, we can pass the icon for this input as well. Then let's define the main input component, which is text input, and here I'm gonna add the style as the default input style, which we're gonna define in a second, and then the input style that will pass from the parent component. Let's also change the placeholder text color. It's going to be neutral 400. And then the reference for this input in case if we need to control it from the parent component. So this is where we pass the input reference. and then the on focus property. So this will trigger whenever the user clicks on the input and it's in focus. We're going to set is focus to true, and on blur property triggers when we move away the focus from the input, and then we will turn the is focus to false, and then the rest of the properties. So we are seeing these errors because we still have to define these styles for the input. So let's add the container style, flex direction as row, then the height will be vertical scale of 56, then align items to the center and justify content as center as well. Then we're gonna have a border around this container, so border width will be 1, and then the border color will be neutral 200. Then it's going to be rounded, so border radius as radius dot full, and then the border curve as continuous. Then we're gonna have some padding horizontal as spacing x of 15, and then the background color will be of neutral 100, like this. And then lastly we're gonna add a gap between the icon and the input, and it's going to be spacing horizontal of 10. So there we can see the container style already. It's going to be our input. Now let's add the primary border. It's going to be active when the input is in focus here, so it will only be added when is focus is true, and it will have just the border color as the primary color from our theme. So now we're gonna add the input styles. So these are the styles for the main text input component here. Now I'm gonna add the flex as one so that it takes full space, and then the color of the font will be the text color from the theme colors, and then the font size will be vertical scale of 14. Let's save this. So there we have our input. We're not passing any icons, so that's why it's not displaying any. Now we're gonna have to pass some properties to make it work. So let's go to the register component, and here we need to add the property as the placeholder. So first we're gonna have the name input, and it's going to say enter your name like this. And we can pass this property even though we haven't specified it anywhere, because we are spreading all the props into the text input. So this will just be on the text input. Then we can add on change text. This will return a string value, which we will just console log for now, like this. And then we're gonna pass the icon. So let's add the icon. We're gonna use the phosphor icons. So let's import all the icons at once. So let's import everything as the icons from phosphor React Native, and let's use the user icon using the icons like this. And then we're gonna pass some properties as the size and the color. So vertical scale of 26, and then the color will be neutral 600. Okay, let's close this, and let's close the input tag and save this. Okay, there we can see the input, but it's not what I expected. I think there must be something went wrong. So okay, so here we need to make this an array. This is using the wrong parentheses. So there we can see the input is correct. Now if we click on this, you can see the border changes, and if we change the focus, then it goes away. So the is focused property is working, and it's adding the primary border. So the input component is working. So now I'm gonna add the state for the inputs, but I'm gonna use the reference for each input, because I think this is better, because we will not be re-rendering the whole component whenever user types anything in the input. So I think useref hook works better in this case. So now I'm also gonna define other properties as is loading. Set is loading. By default it's going to be false. And then we're also gonna use the router to move to the login page as well. So let's define the router like this. Okay, so now let's use this reference to change its current value whenever user types anything in the name input, like this. So now we're gonna have two more inputs like this for the email and the password. So let's copy this 2 more times. Let's save this. There we can see. Now let's change this to enter your email, and here we will update the email reference, and the icon will be @ symbol. So if I save this, you can see the @ symbol. Now for the password, this will say enter your password, and we're going to update the password reference like this, and then the icon will be lock icon. Let's save this, and there we can see the icon is changed. So this will have another property as secure text entry to hide the password. So you can see if I type anything here, we can see it, but we don't see the password. That's where this property is useful. Okay, so now after this input, we're gonna have another view. So this is basically a footer area where our submit button will go and some login text. So margin top will be spacing Y of 25, and then in the gap will be spacing Y of 15. Now let's close this, and inside this we're gonna have the submit button. So let's import the button component and add the loading property using the isLoading state. And then we're gonna define an onPress function which will trigger handle submit function that we'll create in a second. And inside this we will add a typo that will just say SignUp. Okay, before we save this, we're gonna have to define this handle submit function. This is going to be an async function. Let's just leave it like that for now. So let's save this, and there we can see the button. Now let's change this text and add the font weight of bold, and the color will be black, and then the size will be 20. Let's save this. There we can see. Now after this, I'm gonna have another view for the footer area. So let's add a view, give this a style of footer. And for the footer, we have the following properties of the style. So you can just copy these. Then inside this, I'm gonna add a typo, and this will say already have an account. And then a login link. So let's add a pressable after this, and then add onPress property. We're gonna use the router to go to the login page. This one. And let's close this, and here let's add a typo and change the font weight to bold, and then the color will be primary dark color, and this will just say login. Let's save this. There we can see the login link. Now the design is complete, but when we click on this sign up button, nothing happens, and we do need to add some validations for this form. Let's go to this function, and here let's add a condition. If we don't have any value for the email, password, and the username, then we're gonna display an error message. Okay, so we're gonna use the alert from React Native, and this will say sign up, and the message will be please fill all the fields. And then we're gonna return from here. So we will not proceed further, but if we don't have this error, then we are good to go and begin the sign up process. So let's save this and see if this is working. Now if we click on this, we get this error, but if we have all the values in all the fields. Now if I click on this, nothing happens. That means we are good to go. Okay, so everything is working. Now let's see the loading as well. So if I make this true, we can see the loading, and if I make this false, this will go away like this. So the register component is complete, and if we click on the login link, this will take us to the login page, and we're gonna use the same component, same UI on the login as well. Let's copy this and paste it here. So the first thing I'm gonna do is change the component name to login like this. Let's save this, and you can see it's the same component, but we're gonna change some properties. So let's change this error message to login. Then in the header section, this will say forgot your password. Like this. And then this will say welcome back. And we're going to change this line as well. This will say we are happy to see you. Let's save this. There we go. Now we don't need the name input for the login, so let's just remove this section, and let's also remove this from the validations and the name reference as well. Okay, so let's see what else do we need to change here. So this needs to say login, and in the footer area this will say don't have an account. Then the link for the sign up, so this will go to register page and it will say sign up. Let's save this. So with this, the login screen is complete as well. So let me just reload the application and let's get started. We have the sign up page, we have added the validations, and we can go to login, and then we can go to sign up from here as well. Okay, so with this, the authentication UI is complete, and in the next part we'll work on the backend.